जो चीज़ मुझे वैसे जनरली फैसिनेट करती है अबाउट दिस कम्युनिटी is के 2.5 million Memons in Pakistan, which is like 1% of Pakistan's population, but their contribution to the economy is far bigger.
Now, the interesting part over here, Mubariz, is what happens when you go bust. It sums up what's wrong with Pakistan at macro level and why at the micro level, these communities, including Chiniotis, Ismailis, etc., why they continue to thrive.
से उज़ैर ने बोला होता यूनिवर्सिटी करके कि यार मुझे बिजनेस करना है यहाँ पे, हाउ वुड दैट एक्सपीरियंस बी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम से नॉन मेमन कम्युनिटी? ऐसा क्या क्या चीजें सपोर्ट वो प्रोवाइड करती है जिसमें आपके लिए आसान हो जाता है?
Entrepreneurs को चाहिए रिस्क कैपिटल. रिस्क कैपिटल में यू गो बस्ट वेदर यू लाइक इट और नहीं चला. आप बैंक्रप्सी कोर्ट्स और बिजनेस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कोर्ट्स को इफेक्टिव बना दें और अलग कर दें सिस्टम से.
हाउ डिड दिस मेमन कैरिकेचर ऑफ बीइंग कंजूस कम अबाउट? Uzair, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
I'm so glad things worked out. आप भी कराची में थे, मैं और हम यहाँ पे रिकॉर्ड कर सके. I wanted to have this conversation from multiple aspects. I know you talk about the macro economics and policy bit a lot, and I want to talk about it, but essentially focus on entrepreneurship in Pakistan. And another thing that you speak about that I'm actually quite fascinated by and want to learn more about is the Memon community in Pakistan and how such a small percentage of people have created such an outsized contribution to the economy. But before all of that, I want to talk about your book, Future Ready, right?
Yes,
Future Ready.
Future.
So tell me more about what made you write a book? How did that come about? And what is it about?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I mean, look, about 2 years ago, Liberty Books reached out and said, we want you to write a book on Pakistan's economy. And the initial conversation was, I was left with the takeaway, yet another book about crisis in Pakistan and what doesn't work, right? And I wrote back to them and I said, well, we all know what doesn't work, and people who are far more better experts in this space than I am have written. Nishad Hussain साहब ने लिखी हैं, Sayyid Akbar Zaidi साहब ने लिखी हैं, और भी कैसे बंगाली ने लिखी हैं, और भी किताबें हैं, भरा हुआ है पूरा literature on what doesn't work. So I was like, can we take a look at sort of what could work in Pakistan? And build a framework about if you were to start making things work in Pakistan, what would that be? So that's how Future Ready came out. And essentially, from my perspective, the idea was knowing what we know about what doesn't work in Pakistan, then providing a framework of, at its core, what are those things? And if you look at innovation and technology and what's coming in terms of not just artificial intelligence, but decentralized media, decentralized energy systems, as we speak, there's a debate in Pakistan about solar rooftop panels, right? So that was my view of saying, yes, there are things that don't work, but let's try to have a framework of if you were to start making them work, what would you do and what parts of the economy do you need to sort of focus on to pull that off?
Okay, nice. So tell me more about, in your understanding, Pakistan mein entrepreneurship ko kis lens se, what lens do we view it as? Is it a policy issue? Why don't we have entrepreneurship thriving in Pakistan? Why don't people, because when I look at avenues for social mobility, मैं अगर मुझे घर खरीदना है, मैं किस तरह खरीद सकता हूँ एक दुनिया में पैसे हलाल पैसे कमा के? There aren't many jobs which will enable me to do that, right? Maybe बैंक में काम कर लिया, mortgage आ गया, ये हो गया, वो हो गया. And so entrepreneurship seems like unless you can throw the javelin like Arshad Nadeem, you have entrepreneurship is literally one of the only ways which can guarantee that social mobility. So Pakistan में वो अभी भी नहीं है. Not everyone feels they can have entrepreneurship as a viable option. Why do you think that is?
So I mean, look, एक तो अरशद नदीम वाली भी अगर आप बात करें तो अरशद नदीम को ट्रेन करने के लिए उसको स्पॉन्सर्स चाहिए, स्पॉन्सर्स करने के लिए बिजनेसेस चाहिए, बिजनेसेस एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप. सो एट इट्स कोर यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट. It all boils down to entrepreneurship. Now, why is it that Pakistan में entrepreneurship को सेलिब्रेट नहीं किया जाता? एक तो उसका कल्चरल फिनोमेनॉन है. My one view is, and again connects to the Memon part as well, there is a weird क्या कहते हैं taboo around accumulating wealth in places like Pakistan. And it's not just Pakistan, India may be, I've had this conversation with colleagues and friends, Bangladesh may be, it's a South Asian thing. Okay, we're deeply uncomfortable with the accumulation of wealth. It's seen as like, आप 2 number हैं अगर आपने wealth accumulate करना start किया, right? You're morally, there's something wrong with you. In Maiwand community, that's not the case. We'll come to that in a bit as well. But I think that's the core. Now, that's at the micro level. तो जब आप celebrate नहीं करते entrepreneurship को, because two things go in hand. एक तरफ आप celebrate नहीं कर रहे accumulation of wealth को, दूसरा issue जो है आप celebrate नहीं करते failure को. And entrepreneurship requires both. You to be comfortable with losing a lot and being okay with that and having a system that sort of props you up after you fail. Arshad Nadeem से थ्रो नहीं हुआ, किसी ने बैकअप किया, कोच आया, उसने उसको गाइड किया. बट देन ऑल्सो कि अर्शद नदीम अगर वर्ल्ड रिकॉर्ड क्रिएट करता है और उसके थ्रू अमीर होता है, जो कि उसको होना चाहिए, और एकेडमी बनाता है और अगली जनरेशन को ट्रेन करके एज एन एंटरप्रेन्योर हु इज रिटायर्ड, आई एम मेकिंग दिस अप नाउ, उसको सेलिब्रेट किया जाता है. दैट्स द अदर गैप, राइट? सो दैट्स एट द माइक्रो लेवल. द मैक्रो लेवल एट द बुक लेवल दैट आई गेट इनटू इज कि आपके पास 3 चीज़ों की स्कैरसिटी है पाकिस्तान में, which holds you back as a society on having a entrepreneurial moment, so to speak. The first at its core is a scarcity of energy. Industrialized nations, whether you're in the IT sector or in the real economy building things, require efficient, reliable, affordable access to energy. Uski jab scarcity hogi, or we can go into what that scarcity looks like in Pakistan, you will always struggle. Because there's a clear sort of like relationship and correlation between per capita energy use in societies and per capita GDP.
So what's the scarcity energy? Because what we can see is that we have producing excess energy.
Yeah.
Right?
So Pakistan is a weird case in that sense कि एक तरफ आपके पास excess energy है on the grid जिस पे सब complain करते हैं capacity payments को लेके, right? और दूसरी तरफ electricity shortages हैं, load shedding होती है, right? तो 4000 excess इस वक्त अमार खान कहता है कि 4000 excess megawatts साउथ में मौजूद है पाकिस्तान के, लेकिन वो टैप नहीं हो सकते, तो स्कैर्स है एनर्जी फॉर सम रीजन. अच्छा, और दूसरी चीज जो अजीब है पाकिस्तान की अब जो हो गई है वो ये कि आपके पास अबंडेंस भी है एनर्जी की, स्कैरसिटी भी है. अबंडेंस में प्राइसेस नीचे आनी चाहिए, स्कैरसिटी है तो प्राइसेस ऊपर जाती रहती हैं. ऑल्दो एक्सेस कैपेसिटी मींस ट्रेडिशनली इफ द मार्केट वाज वर्किंग, पावर वुड बिकम चीपर इन पाकिस्तान, बट इट्स नॉट फॉर द मार्केट फेलियर्स दैट एग्जिस्ट, राइट? सो व्हाट दैट देन डज इज the scarcity of energy prevents entrepreneurs from being globally competitive. And when you end up being globally uncompetitive, you're not going to export, you're not going to have excess output, and you're going to be in this trap. So that's trap number 1, the scarcity of energy that you have to solve for. Trap number 2 is the scarcity of capital. You're familiar with this with your startup work and working with companies. We were just talking about before the recording started about crowding out effects and how the government borrows too much, crowds out everything. But that's not everything, right? A big part of this has to do with your cash economy. And in the book, as I explain it, like people need to realize that modern banks are like alchemists. आपके घर में या मेरे घर में अगर ₹1 पड़ा है और मेरे पास या आपके पास कोई आए और कहे कि यार मुझे इन्वेस्टमेंट का कैपिटल दो, तो वो मैं ₹1 दे सकता हूँ. आई कैन नॉट क्रिएट मोर मनी आउट ऑफ दिस. अ बैंक कैन क्रिएट अप टू 40 times more money out of that, right? That same rupee you give to the bank, वो ₹40 बना के उसको लैंड कर सकता है. तो पहला इशू तो ये है कि हम कैश इकोनॉमी में इतना फंसे हुए हैं, एंड आवर बैंकिंग फॉर्मल फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम इज सो थिन दैट इट्स नॉट एबल टू डू व्हाट मॉडर्न कैपिटलिस्ट इकोनॉमीज टेंड टू डू, व्हिच इज दे क्रिएट मोर मनी आउट ऑफ फॉर्मल बैंकिंग, राइट? एंड सो दैट कैपिटल स्कैरसिटी इज देयर एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ व्हिच इंटरेस्ट रेट्स आर हाई, कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल आउटसाइड ऑफ द फॉर्मल सिस्टम, व्हिच इज द majority of Pakistanis borrow through loan sharks. It's really bad from a social perspective, from a financial perspective. So you're stuck in that scarcity of capital loop. And then I argue that these two scarcities merged together lead to the scarcity of productivity, which holds you back in the long term, right? As Paul Krugman said, in the long run, productivity is everything in the economy, right? So आपके पास एनर्जी नहीं है, आप एफिशिएंट यूज नहीं कर सक रहे उसका, प्रोडक्टिविटी आप प्रोडक्शन नहीं कर पा रहे, इन्वेस्ट नहीं कर पा रहे, ग्लोबली कंपेटिटिव नहीं है. आपके पास अगर आइडिया भी है अच्छा और आप एंटरप्रेन्योर हैं, कैपिटल नहीं मिल रहा आपको, और वो दो चीजें आपको होल्ड बैक करती हैं, तो इवेंचुअली एज अ सोसाइटी योर प्रोडक्टिविटी रिमेन्स स्टंटेड. एंड व्हेन यू हैव स्टंटेड प्रोडक्टिविटी, देन यू कैन नॉट ग्रो एनीवेयर. सो दीज आर द 3 macro level things. Combine that with the micro level issue of not celebrating entrepreneurship, not celebrating wealth accumulation, you end up with where we are in Pakistan.
No, that's actually quite a great framework to put it in. So now let me segue into the one of the things that I really want to talk about is Memons. They seem to have somehow bypassed all these issues.
Yeah.
And so I think the first thing that I want to talk to you about is the mindset. They seem to be operating on a different mindset, right? Where wealth accumulation is extremely celebrated, and there's a great comfort with failure. Ulta, वहाँ पे अगर नौकरी जो करने जाते हैं मेरे जो मेमन दोस्त हैं उनको प्रेशर होता है कि नौकरी नहीं करनी, तुमने जाके धंधा कर, बिजनेस करना है तुमने, एंड सही है, फेल होना है तो फेल हो जाओ, हमें उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, बट यू हैव टू ट्राई, and that's something. So what's different over there?
So I think part of this is ek to ye, and this is not just a Memon thing, right? There's again, to reference this part of the conversation, agar logon ne deeper jana hai isme, they should read this book, No Birds of Passage.
Yeah.
It's a history of Gujarati Muslim communities, Boris, Ismailis and Memons, right? तो उसके अंदर Memons are a part of that story. First up is कि these are merchant communities out of the coast of Gujarat. और coastal communities का हमेशा से all over the world, you look at even within the subcontinent, आप जो है वो महाराष्ट्र की communities ले लें, आप कर्नाटका की community, coastal communities हमेशा business outward oriented होती हैं. Memons का जो traditional outlook, as I even look back at it growing up, was always like you have to accumulate wealth.
Okay.
And that is like something that is part of your upbringing, and it is celebrated. It also comes with responsibility. So there is a paired moral part of this, which is why people often say Memons देते भी बहुत हैं, उनकी जमात की अपनी hospitals भी हैं, educational institutions भी हैं, charity पे भी देते हैं. That is linked to this part कि celebrate करना है, but as you do that, also look after the rest of your community members.
They're big on charity.
Big on that. So, and within the Jamaat in particular. दूसरा ये, and this is a dark part of the Memon history, which is कि colonial India में, when the judicial system was built by the British authorities, there was, and still is, a debate in India around this. There's a Hindu inheritance law and a Muslim inheritance law. The Memon Jamaats were able to then go and say कि हमारा जो inheritance structure है, although we are Muslim, we are closer to Hindu laws of inheritance. So they got a carve out, so to speak.
Okay.
और उसके cases हैं, for lawyers, you can look into the Bombay cases of the 1800s where women fought this in the Bombay High Court, for example. तो होता ये था कि जब इनहेरिटेंस होती थी मेमन जमात के अंदर, तो इट डिड नॉट यूज टू गेट डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड अक्रॉस द फैमिली, इट वेंट टू द हेड ऑफ द फैमिली हु वाज द हेयर एसेंशियली. इस तरह फिर कैपिटल पूल होता रहा. या तो वो जब कार्व आउट उन्होंने लिया, तो दैट अलाउड अक्यूमुलेशन ऑफ कैपिटल विद इन द जमात एंड विद इन द फैमिली सिस्टम. उससे फिर जब ब्रिटिश कॉलोनियल इंडिया और उसकी एक्सपेंशन हो रही थी इनटू प्लेसेस लाइक हांगकांग एंड सिंगापुर एंड अफ्रीका एंड अदर पार्ट्स, तो द जमात्स and the Memons, the Boris, the Ismailis became sort of a leading front end of the capitalist expansion out of the subcontinent through the colonial era into parts of British Empire, right? तो उसके अंदर, for example, इस किताब में एक बड़ा interesting anecdote है कि 1800 से लेके पार्टीशन तक जो हज का राउट था, उसकी मोनोपली हवाला हुंडी पर, और उसकी ट्रांसपोर्टेशन और शिपिंग की मोनोपली जो है वो गुजराती मुस्लिम कम्युनिटीज के पास थी आउट ऑफ गुजरात.
ओके.
तो नॉर्थ इंडिया से मुसलमान आते थे साउथ पे हज या उम्रा करने के लिए. शिपिंग लेन्स और उसके मनी ट्रांसफर का पूरा सिस्टम ये कम्युनिटीज चलाती थी.
Okay.
और उनके नेटवर्क्स थे इनटू व्हाट वाज देन ऑटोमन अरेबिया and became Saudi Arabia, etc. तो एक पूरा रिलेशनशिप था between these jamaats and these communities and the British colonial era. So that was the second part of this. The third part comes around partition, because जब migration होती है तो Boris, Ismailis, Memons all migrate out of Gujarat together and end up in Karachi. But they had relations in Karachi already. यहाँ पे Ismaili presence भी थी, Sindhi Memon presence भी थी, Kutchi Memon presence भी थी, Bhori presence भी थी. तो वो जब आए सब कुछ छोड़ के, it wasn't like they were coming to a completely foreign land. They had contacts and networks here, and also linguistically गुजराती और मेमनी जो है वो सिंधी के बड़ा करीब है. तो culturally, linguistically एक mesh होने लगा, and that's why if you even look at the history of Karachi, जो मुहाजिर सिंधी टेंशन है उस पर ये लोग भूल जाते हैं कि ये कम्युनिटीज भी मुहाजिर थी, बट दे seamlessly integrated because they had a relationship and a cultural affinity with Sindhis.
Before we get into that, I just want to quickly touch upon who are Memons. वो भी आई थिंक काफी लोग बहुत कंफ्यूज होते हैं कि मेमन है कौन वगैरह.
Yeah.
How did they like so just a little bit of history on
So
that.
it's a Gujarati ethnic group essentially. It's kind of like a mix between Sindhis as well as Gujaratis, and they essentially the conversion process to Islam began essentially Hindu caste थी, बहुत सारी इसके अंदर सब castes हैं etc. But इनका conversion process शुरू होता है in the at least the 1400-1500s. For example, when I went to India and to my ancestral village, तो village के बाहर एक shrine है. वहाँ पे 2 पीरों की कब्र है. तो अर्लीस्ट पीर की जो कब्र है वो 400-500 साल पुरानी है. उन्होंने पहला प्रोसेस शुरू किया कन्वर्जन का. तो पार्ट ऑफ द मेमन कन्वर्जन प्रोसेस गोज बैक. मेमन्स आर आल्सो हिंदूज एज वेल बाय द वे. और वो कन्वर्जन होती रही. सो फॉर एग्जांपल मेरी अपनी जो एक्सटेंडेड फैमिली एज फार एज आई हैव बीन एबल टू ट्रेस बैक, वी कन्वर्टेड टू इस्लाम समवेयर इन द लेट 1800s. So very late converts. So the Memons are part of this community, merchant families of Gujarati origin with the Sindhis being part of that. और जब बॉम्बे प्रेसिडेंसी थी तो उसके अंदर it became like a fluid mesh all the way from Karachi into Indian Gujarat.
Okay, fine. And so that's why when they migrated, they just had enough of a community already here, so it wasn't like a new place, or at least it wasn't like they were not completely alien to this land.
Correct. They were not alien. They knew the culture of Sindh. They had the trading networks. They had other parts of on the Ismaili side as well and the Bori side. So that made it easier. उसके साथ साथ जब ये होती है migration, तो a lot of the, because again going back to the capital accumulation, British Raj के अंदर जो initial Memon communities थी, they were also getting into banking because capital was pulling up, industrialization हो रही थी, etc. So when Jinnah decided to move to Karachi as well as part of partition, he brought with him sort of the Memon merchant classes along with the Boris and the Ismailis, and that's how the banking sort of structure that exists in Pakistan to date, which has a very Ismaili and a Memon component to it at its core, emerged. Because ये banking families थी जो आई, उन्होंने नए पाकिस्तान में बुनियाद रखी financial sector की, और फिर उसके बाद अब आप fast forward करें तो आपको AKD type लोग Memon community इसी market में मिलते हैं. But it started in 47 with this influx into Karachi.
Oh, no, excellent. So let's talk about what all कौन से ऐसे sectors हैं जहाँ पे Memons typically like they operated in the beginning. I know they were huge on trading. They still are. They're some of the biggest and the best traders, at least in both parts, Pakistan, India, वगैरह. They are Memon, etc. But कौन से sectors में Memon typically started working?
So a large part of it was jute initially. Jute के अंदर क्योंकि again in the colonial era into Calcutta and what was then became East Pakistan, jute की communities थी, तो jute के अंदर काम करना शुरू किया. Banking initial में आए, and then when the first wave of industrialization happened, you ended up with mills, textile, etc. तो पाकिस्तान की पूरी initial industrialization की जो wave थी up until nationalization, उसके अंदर जितने भी businesses थे, there was a part of it that was Bori, Ismaili and Memon collectively in all of that.
Okay, and I came across this quote while researching this conversation actually. Stephen Lewis, he wrote about how if Pakistan survived economically in its early years, it was because of the Memons. I mean, जो चीज़ मुझे वैसे generally fascinate करती है because of this about this community is कि there's like I think what 2 million Memons, 2.5 million Memons in Pakistan, but their contribution to the economy, which is like 1% of Pakistan's population, not even. But the contribution to the economy is far bigger. Why do you think that is? Like, what are the core principles why they are very good at entrepreneurship?
So part of this, as I said, was the celebration of entrepreneurship. Right? एक तो ये था. दूसरा ये था कि अगर आप colonial India की तारीख उठा के देखें, तो between the end of the tail end of the Mughal Empire and sort of post 1857, the Raj coming in, North Indian Muslims were primarily the administrative class.
Okay.
Primarily. Now I'm generalizing here before people start going a bit crazy that I'm talking about stereotypes. They were generally out of that class. And as a result of that, there was this latent resistance to modern capitalism and industrialization because it was disruptive in nature with the colonial authorities and everything else, right? तो हुआ ये कि नॉर्दर्न इंडिया की मुस्लिम communities were resisting a lot of the modern financial systems, modern ways of doing business, etc. The southern Muslim communities, in particular these three, sort of embraced that. And so they became far more comfortable operating in a more global, increasingly globalized world, and an increasingly globalized world that was led by Western finance and capitalism.
Okay.
तो जब partition होती है, so these ended up becoming the sort of elite class that migrated along with Jinnah in terms of Karachi being the capital and sort of saying, we know how to build a modern economy. And that modern economy was coming out of the experience of colonial India and sort of having that knowledge. So, for example, the Aga Khan and his community played a big role in that. The Memons played and the Buris with the relationships they had abroad, including in England, played a big role. That was the second one. कि उन्होंने warm up कर लिया था in colonial India, and they had become very comfortable, even including in some of the bad things. For example, Memons in that book again talks about the fact that Memons and Boris ran the slave parts of the British slave trade as well, going into East Africa, right? So there are dark parts of this colonial capitalist
whatever
expansion
was legal
too.
at that time.
They were doing that.
They were doing
and
it,
so they were very comfortable operating in that world, and so that helped quite a bit. And then also finally what helped was कि क्योंकि एक नया पाकिस्तान था, उसने इंडस्ट्रियलाइज होना था, उसने दुनिया के साथ ट्रेड करनी थी, तो इन कम्युनिटीज का इंक्लूडिंग द पारसीज बाय द वे नेटवर्क्स थे वेस्ट के अंदर भी, अफ्रीका के अंदर भी, ईस्ट एशिया के अंदर भी. सो दे एंडेड अप बिकमिंग सॉर्ट ऑफ emissaries or market access consultants, so to speak, in modern language, that were able to sort of say, we know how to export, we know how to bring the right expertise in, and let's grow through that. So, you know, the Kawasji family, the Diwan family, etc., they all emerged together in this new Pakistan because they had that experience of operating in a more globalized world as a result of this.
No, that's fascinating. But what do you think happened post-nationalization? Do you think that discouraged a lot of people?
I don't know the exact scale, but nationalization was a big hit, right? Because again, if you think about the compact that was struck between Jinnah and these communities and their migration, was that you were entering a new country that would industrialize, that would progress, and that would be capitalist in its orientation. Nationalization turned that whole thing upside down. So, for example, if, Gen Z may not be familiar with him as much as you and I are, but if people look up the archival records of Arthur Kawasji's columns in Dawn, he rails against that part, right? Because he came from a shipping that same tradition, right? तो हुआ ये कि जब आपने वो compact तोड़ दिया, so then it leads to a lot of like latent sort of views that say, okay, this is not what we had bargained for, our ancestors had bargained for. And you eventually sort of either move abroad, which there has been a lot of migration, particularly of Parsis, out of Karachi. बहुत vibrant community होती थी. मेरे बहुत सारे teachers जो थे जब मैं छोटा था, they were all Parsis. So Gujarati भी बोलते थे, so they could communicate with my parents and my grandparents fluently and also teach us really well. But they're gone now, primarily, right, out of Karachi. So that was the breaking. I would say it's a key inflection point, and we should not underappreciate the impact nationalization had on the psyche of these communities as well. The second thing that happened post-nationalization also was that, again, this may sound political in nature, but that's not my point here. The capital had moved north into Islamabad. And so Pakistan, what, Amar and I frequently refer to it in public as the heartland strategy. We went from a coastal strategy to a heartland strategy. And over time, that had a negative impact on Pakistan's industrialization, the way policy was made, the way Pakistan operated, because bureaucrats started running the economy far more than, pre-71 Pakistan.
So talk to me more about what a coastal versus heartland, like what is that? What are these frameworks?
So if you think about and you look all over the world, right? You look at, let's start with the United States. The great cities of America through industrialization that emerged were cities like New York and Baltimore on the East Coast, the Port of LA, the Port of San Diego on the West Coast, etc. Right? So innovation or industrialization or trading का जो core आपका होता है वो coast पे लगता है. India आप उठा लें, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Gujarat. Those are if you look at GDP per capita divides, UP is far behind and Bihar is far behind, and these
South India is basically
it's its own country, right? In that sense. And you look at Singapore, you look at Dubai, etc. In the modern era, even Saudi Arabia's new strategy is all focused on getting its coast vibrant, right? Because they also realize that innovation or trading जो है, industrialization, modernization, वो coast से हमेशा पहले होती है.
This episode is brought to you by Kiss Bazaar. Kiss Bazaar is a leading BNPL platform of Pakistan. वहाँ पे जाके आप अपने लिए इंस्टॉलमेंट्स पे काफ़ी सारे प्रोडक्ट्स ले सकते हैं, चाहे आप फ्रीलांसर हो, एक अर्ली प्रोफेशनल हो या एंटरप्रेन्योर हो. आप अपनी स्टार्टअप के लिए अपने लिए एसीज, टीवी, फ्रिज, फोन्स, लैपटॉप, इलेक्ट्रिक बाइक्स, व्हाटएवर इट इज़, आप अपने लिए इजी इंस्टॉलमेंट्स पे ले सकते हैं. सो प्लीज़ गो चेक आउट www.kissbazaar.pk.
Pakistan में क्या हुआ post 1971 you had a sort of shift in strategy that says we're going to develop the heartland in Punjab in particular. And so you ended up with a overall strategy and a policy posture, whether on the energy side, whether on the infrastructure side, that prioritized the development up there. Now, that doesn't mean कि नहीं होनी चाहिए, बिल्कुल होनी चाहिए.
Yeah.
But the problem became that because Punjab and its location is closest to India, if Punjab had to prosper, you had to trade with India, if that strategy were to work. But that did not happen.
Okay.
So then you ended up with a situation where Pakistan is a net energy importer. Now it imports cotton as well. So a lot of these things that you export come into the port.
Yeah.
When you ship it all the way up, you add value over there. Then you ship it all the way down, and then you take it out,
yeah.
right? So it leads to a freight margin issue and a transportation issue and a bunch of other issues that make you uncompetitive as a result.
And we're not very efficient with logistics anyway.
We're not very efficient with logistics. Here on top of it, that strategy led to, for example, if you look at sort of, and you know, people who've done this will know, you come out of Karachi and you take a road trip into Sindh. And you go into Punjab and you get on the motorway. The experience on the motorway is very different than the experience from Karachi to a few hundred kilometers north of Karachi, right?
Hyderabad bhi, हाँ, yeah,
right?
exactly.
But आपका port Karachi है. So it behooves the mind to say कि जो outlet और inlet है आपकी पूरी की पूरी economy का, उसका infrastructure जो है वो इतना खराब है.
Yeah.
और आप north जाते हैं तो अचानक से infrastructure ठीक हो जाता है. होना चाहिए वहाँ पे infrastructure
हर
ठीक.
जगह सही होना, but
लेकिन नीचे पहले होना चाहिए ना, because
Exactly.
यहाँ से सारे सामान आ रहा है और यहाँ से ही सारी अर्निंग हो रही है एक्सपोर्ट करने की, राइट? So that's the issue that has held, in my opinion, Pakistan back, in the sense के this is one of the issues. The second one, which I think is far more egregious in nature, is that post-nationalization, economic management was taken away from entrepreneurs and industrialists and handed into the hands of bureaucrats. We ended up with this weird mixed command economy type situation where to this day, for example, Kal Khurram Hussain ka ek article tha, and parts of it I really related to, which was like bureaucrat से power sector चल नहीं रहा, लेकिन वो control देने को राजी भी नहीं है उस power sector का, right? So those two issues then compounded everything. Plus, if you're a bureaucrat, again going back to our earlier point, you're not going to celebrate entrepreneurialism. You're not a risk taker. Bureaucrats, civil servants by nature are not supposed to be that. But क्योंकि आपने उनको economy अपनी हाथ में थमा दी है, तो then it's only a matter of time wherein entrepreneurship takes a back seat and management of the economy takes a front seat, and you don't develop by managing the economy.
Well, that's why we are so obsessed with price controls. My wife works at AKU, and recently वो जो नई चीज़ आ रही है वो है कि जी medical colleges की जो fee है उस पे cap होना चाहिए. And they're like, भाई क्यों, number one क्यों होना चाहिए, and number two, how do we manage this, because we pay professors who come in from abroad, etc. Some of our professors paid in dollars, etc. हम किस तरह से आपकी एक price cap, but we are like upset. This is, I think, every bureaucrat's wet dream is कि जी किसी तरह बस price को restrict कर दो आप, and that's just somehow popular.
And the irony of this, Mubarak, is like, if you think about it, हमने प्राइस कंट्रोल्स को, या इवन इन द पावर सेक्टर और अदर सेक्टर्स, गंदम में अब कम हो गया है, बट यूज्ड टू बी दिस केस कि हुकूमत पाकिस्तान प्राइस सेट करती है, हुकूमत पाकिस्तान फिर उस प्राइस पे खरीदती है और एक प्राइस पे बेचती है, और उसमें नफा नहीं कमाती, तो फिर डेट अक्यूमुलेट होता रहता है, राइट? जो 2 ट्रिलियन का सर्कुलर डेट अब एनर्जी में है, 2 ट्रिलियन का गैस में है, केस इन पॉइंट. अब आपने आवाम को ये बताया हुआ है कि ये हम आपके लिए कर रहे हैं. हालांकि इफ यू लुक एट पाकिस्तानी पीपल इन जनरल अक्रॉस द बोर्ड, they actually understand and fundamentally at the micro level know why markets exist and why they are the best place. How do I explain that? You go to anybody, we have the whole team sitting here, यहाँ पूल करते हैं. आप बाजार जाएंगे कुछ खरीदने के लिए, आप 10 लोगों से पूछेंगे हाँ भाई इसका रेट क्या है.
हाँ सही.
आप प्राइस डिस्कवरी करेंगे, फिर बार्गेन करेंगे. अब उस बाजार के अंदर अगर बेचने वाला ही एक है, तो you're gonna get ripped off as the consumer, right? And people understand that. But so weirdly, ordinary Pakistanis know the power of markets. They operate in a market environment. They know how to negotiate in a market environment. But when you get out of the micro into the macro in bureaucrats land, there it's a weird sort of issue about controlling the market and the market not being okay. And I'm like, it's not that hard to explain to ordinary Pakistanis why there should be a multi-buyer, multi-seller model in energy, for example.
Exactly.
उनको समझ आ जाएगी, लेकिन अभी आपने उनको इतना इनएफिशिएंट सिस्टम बना दिया है, और जो चलाने वाले हैं उस सिस्टम को, उन्होंने कोई कॉस्ट, ₹1 कॉस्ट पे नहीं करना उसकी इनएफिशिएंसी का. तो 2 ट्रिलियन 4 ट्रिलियन प्लस टोटल क्यूमुलेटिव सर्कुलर डेट है इस वक्त गैस और एनर्जी का मिला के. जो ब्यूरोक्रेट जिन्होंने ये बनाया है, क्या वो उसका कॉस्ट पे करेंगे? नहीं. कॉस्ट तो ऑर्डिनरी सिटीजन्स पे करेंगे.
उनके तो KPIs भी नहीं आ रहा ना, कोई उनको जज भी नहीं कर रहा उसके उस पे, बिकॉज पॉलिटिशियंस आर द ओनली वंस हु टेक द फॉल.
Exactly.
एवरीवन से ये लोग इनकॉम्पिटेंट.
Exactly. बट हालांकि जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सर्विसेज हैं जिसने ये पूरा सिस्टम बनाया है और अभी भी इंसिस्ट कर रहा है कि हम ही चलाएंगे इसको, वो हाथ छोड़ने को राजी नहीं है.
और उनका नाम भी नहीं पता होता, नाम ना सामने आता है ना कुछ, किसी को कुछ. जैसे अभी नेट मीटरिंग, नेट बिलिंग, जितना सब कुछ हुआ, एवरीवन से शहबाज शरीफ क्या कर रहे हैं. They don't know what they're doing. KMLN has no idea what they're doing. अच्छा, so coming back to our thing, so you grew up in a Mehman household, right? So, and you have kind of gone against the grain where you're not running or trading sitting in Karachi and doing that, right? But knowing what the community is, ऐसा क्या सिस्टम होता है? Like I want to get into more granular stuff. कि जब एक से उज़ैर ने बोला होता यूनिवर्सिटी करके कि यार मुझे बिजनेस करना है यहाँ पे पाकिस्तान में, how would that experience be different from say a non-Mehman etc. Like community ऐसा क्या-क्या चीजें support वो provide करती है जिसमें आपके लिए आसान हो जाता है?
So great question, right? So let's say if I had even come back from college and said to my father I want to go into the business, the first thing he would say is to मेरी दुकान पे आके बैठना शुरू करो, right? That would be the first step. So I would learn the way he does business.
Did you do this before going, like while in school or something?
A little bit I would go, right? My brother did the same, right? So it would be like you go, you sit with your grandfather and your father, and you would slowly be exposed to what the rhythm of the business is. कि जी इनसे मिलके आओ, इनको पैसे कलेक्ट करने हैं, गो डाउन जाओ, माल आया चेक करो कि सही है कि नहीं, etc. Right? So you learn it by doing. It's an apprenticeship at the beginning, and kids who know that they're going to go into the business, like a lot of my cousins and extended family, they started doing this at the age of 12, 13, 14. My family was different in the sense that what they had seen was when kids as young as 12, 13, 14 start doing that, they can start making good money.
Yeah.
And when you start making good money, you don't go towards education. And that my parents did not want that, so they kept us a bit away from that. But a lot of my friends 16 साल की उम्र में, 17 साल की उम्र में बहुत ज़बरदस्त डील हो गई, पूरी सूप टप जो है उनकी सिविक आ गई है लाल रंग की, क्योंकि उसने पैसे बना लिए अच्छे खासे, राइट, उसकी पहली डील में. So that's how it starts, apprenticeship. Then you say, okay, I want to do my own thing. So the first seed capital, speaking of like startup money, right, is coming from your family. Primarily your father or your grandparents, some money saved up, and they'll give you enough to say, acha, you don't want to do this business, you want to go into rice exports. Okay, here's some seed capital, buy your inventory, run it.
But what if they don't have the capital?
So when they don't have the capital, then it's extended family. Then it's the Jamaat network that comes in, right?
Okay,
so then you'll say, अच्छा मेरे पास इतने नहीं है, but ये इसका भी लड़का जो है वो जवान है तुम्हारी तरह, उसके बाप के पास थोड़ा ज़्यादा पैसा है, पार्टनरशिप कर लो, हम जानते हैं एक दूसरे को ट्रस्ट है, तो you'll do 80-20 type partnership or whatever, you hustle, you grow your capital, etc. या आपकी जो है छोटी सी दुकान है, दुकान में आपने किसी ने आपको बिठा लिया, वहाँ पर आपने काम सीखा, और जब बराबर वाली कोई नई दुकान खुलेगी मोबाइल मार्केट में फॉर example, you start doing work over there, right? So that's the starting point. That's how it starts. And then you build from there. You accumulate that capital, that knowledge, that insight, that network to grow from there. Now, the interesting part over here, Mubariz, is what happens when you go bust. This is the part people don't realize. So my view on this is, and this is like, it sums up what's wrong with Pakistan at the macro level, and why at the micro level, these communities, including Chiniotis, Ismailis, etc., why they continue to thrive. Hota hi hai, and I've seen this multiple times in like my own experience, right? Let's say I start that business with my father, and I pool capital from different parts of the extended network, including some business partners, and I go bust. चावल की फसल खराब हो गई, इन्वेंट्री में सैलाब आ गया, इन्वेंट्री चली गई, now I owe people 10 crore rupees. Imagine that's the case. Now, in Pakistan, there are no bankruptcy laws or anything,
That's
right?
okay.
So you're in an ordinary world, you're screwed at that point in time, right? In these communities, what then happens is that there's basically a hierarchy of who your senior and junior debt holders are.
Okay.
So you owe 10 crores to multiple people. A lot of it is your own equity, but then there are people on the downstream that you owe money to. तो होगा ये कि फिर एक मीटिंग बुलाई जाएगी. उस मीटिंग में घर के आपके बड़े भी होंगे, probably your papa or your grandfather, whoever the patron of the house is. He will be there. There will be other parts of the family that will be there. The others who are outside the family will be called. Everyone will sort of say, okay, he owes me this much, he owes me that much, etc. And a deal will be made. And that deal likely primarily will be that the further you are outside the family circle, you will be paid first. And the further you are inside, you take the guarantees of getting paid late.
Sahi hai.
And if even at that point in time, your money starts to run out, at that point in time, your family jewels, literally, will be put as collateral of saying कि ये इसकी माँ के पास या इसकी दादी के पास ये सोना है या ये चांदी है, इतने का बनता है, तो आप ये रख लें जब तक वो every month payment करेगा, बेचेगा नहीं इसको.
हाँ, fair enough.
Keep it as collateral, and then the payments will come, and as the payments come, the jewels will be returned, literally, right? And then the Jamaat acts as the backstop of saying that at any point in time there's a dispute, these elders who also belong to the Jamaat will solve that dispute, and there's an agreement made.
And it's all like, it's all verbal?
It's all verbal. It's all based on trust. These are trust-based networks.
Yeah.
And so they don't scale as well. This is the Pakistan problem.
Yeah.
So a trust-based network can only take you so far. And this is also where these communities are running into a challenge with innovation and modernization in an industrialized and globalized world. Because वो capital pool इतना अब नहीं है कि आप, you can't replace an IPO, for example, with that trust-based network, right? So that's how the bankruptcy proceeding essentially works in the system. उसके अंदर बहुत सारे cases ऐसे होते हैं कि किसी ने बगैर बताए जो है, अब आपकी इनर फैमिली को नहीं पता, मैं जो हूँ सट्टेबाज हूँ, दिस इज माई आई एम अ स्पेक्युलेटिव ट्रेडर, मेरी फैमिली को नहीं पता कि मैंने जो है 10 करोड़ का नहीं 50 करोड़ का सट्टा लगाया हुआ था.
सही है.
And now I'm gone bust.
Okay.
So now it's a much bigger and much more complicated thing to unwind everything that I've done, but still the trust-based network will backstop me at that point in time. It may take me 10 years to come out of that hole, but they will help me come out of that hole at the end of the day, right? So that works as a sort of outside the system, inside the Jamaat bankruptcy proceedings, so to speak, and it has its own history and legacy of how this work is done. And there's a process to it. It's all verbal, all trust-based. Now, it also signifies the problem in Pakistan, which is entrepreneurs को चाहिए risk capital. Risk capital में you go bust, whether you like it or
नहीं
not. नहीं चला. अब आप जब इन जमात से बाहर जाते हैं, and even within these Jamaats, Boris, Ismailis, Memons can figure it out because they know each other's way of doing business. But let's say I'm partnering as a Memon with somebody out of Rahim Yar Khan.
Yeah.
Trust base नहीं चल सकता उस पे.
बिल्कुल नहीं चल सकता.
So what is the way out, right? So this is where Pakistan is struggling, because we haven't been able to graduate from trust-based networks of capital and capital allocation to formal financial systems of capital allocation, because that's the only way to scale. And a big part of this, you being a lawyer know this a lot better than I do, is this legal judicial gap in the system. Bankruptcy nahi hai, enforcement of contracts nahi hai. So, I was talking to a policy maker who was asking me, quick win बताएं. Yeah, they love quick wins. So मैंने कहा सर आप पंजाब से एक काम करें, आप बैंक्रप्सी कोर्ट्स और बिजनेस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कोर्ट्स को इफेक्टिव बना दें और अलग कर दें सिस्टम से. और कहते हैं क्यों? मैंने कहा जब कॉन्ट्रैक्ट इन्फोर्समेंट ही नहीं होती तो आई वाज लाइक you're from Gujranwala. I would never do business with somebody out of Gujranwala because of this issue, na? You will only do business with somebody from Gujranwala. I will only do somebody from the Memon community. We need to pool our capital together. The only way to do it is through these judicial improvements.
No, absolutely, and that's a game changer. That's what I liked about the brief introduction of venture capital in Pakistan, right? जिसमें हमारे पास पहली बार एक institutional risk capital आ गया पाकिस्तान के अंदर, where suddenly, like growing up, so I'm from a Mahajar family. We are like Mahajar. I feel Urdu-speaking people are generally risk averse, right? They are like अच्छी नौकरी करो, stable उसमें जाओ वगैरह, business वगैरह is too risky, कुछ भी हो सकता है वो उसमें. So growing up, entrepreneurship was never an option. or I never thought of it as an option. But I feel like what venture capital did was change that mindset across the board कि किसी को भी पैसे at least theoretically मिल सकते हैं. वो मिले नहीं इतने ज़्यादा लोगों को और इतने diverse उस background, that's a different thing and that has its own reasons. But yeah, कि वो जो पहला जो हमारे पास introduction आया था, it's sad that it was only limited to a very small sector and hyper scale and something that can grow really, really big in a market that doesn't offer those opportunities. But yeah, so that you're absolutely right. And without an enforcement of contract, it's very hard to have those. And with double books and undocumented businesses, it's very hard to unlock that capital as well.
Yeah, I mean, just using the undocumented part, right? I mean, you had the Gul Plaza tragedy a few weeks ago. Now, the biggest challenge in all of this is that part. I know it literally because there were Mehman shop holders there, so I picked it up through the grapevine, right? कि अब एक इशू होगा कि चेंबर में एक पूरा एप्लीकेशंस का प्रोसेस चलेगा, बट उसकी वेटिंग बड़ा मुश्किल है क्योंकि आपके कोई डॉक्यूमेंटेड हिस्टोरिकल रिटर्न्स हैं नहीं, बुक्स नहीं है जिसपे आप कह सकें कि मेरा ऑन एवरेज इतनी इन्वेंट्री आती थी रमजान से पहले, राइट? There will be a lot of gaps in this and a lot of people will not be made whole as a result of this because your system is not structured in a way where inventory की documentation है, revenues की पूरी documentation है, उसके साथ insurance जुड़ी हुई थी, वो कुछ नहीं है. So all of a sudden the trust-based network will help people, but it's not going to help everybody and it's not going to efficiently help them in the way that it should because of this gap.
No, absolutely. But is it just because of like the fact that you're Mehman and another person is Mehman that like the trust is there? Or is it like कोई फिर भी जान पहचान या
उसी से जान पहचान निकल जाती है यार. तो मेमनी में कहते हैं कि आप किसी की तपास करवाते हैं. तो when somebody comes and says कि अच्छा मैं फलाना जमात से हूँ, I'm Batwa Mehman, right? And somebody comes to me and says कि I'm from the Halari Mehman Jamaat that's making this up. So I will go to my father and I'll go to my elders and say कि ये Halari Mehman के इसके वालिद ये थे, दादा का नाम ये था. They will ask around and अच्छा भाई इनका background क्या है, क्या करते थे, does somebody know them, etc. तो within 10 days due diligence जो होती है वो हो जाएगी and within that network you will find out who they are. So and it works not just within Mehmans, right? So I grew up in Block 8. उससे पहले जब ये माइग्रेशन हुई खारादर में और इन इलाकों में मेमन्स, इस्माइलीज, गुजराती साथ रहते थे, तो अभी तक a lot of my neighbors that I grew up with are all Bori Mehmans. Bori Gujarati, sorry. So even in those deals, it's very easy for me to tap into that network to find out who's who within the Bori community if I had to make a deal. Right, so that's how due diligence works in these networks because it's very.
At the end, it's like the Gujarati common thing is still fine. Like,
exactly.
Okay, so Mehman nahi bhi hai to Gujarati speaking.
Gujarati hai to deal pe you'll figure it out.
How did it become like? How did this Mehman caricature of being conjuice come about? Like is it just extreme capital efficiency? Is that what it is?
No, so it's very interesting you asked that. So in in a weird way, like. That conjuice thing, also you may have heard this, I grew up with this idea that Mehmans are like the Jews of Pakistan. एक कैरिकेचर ये भी था. अच्छा, उसका जब ये मैंने नो बर्ड्स ऑफ पैसेज किताब पढ़ी ना, तो ये एक्चुअली द ऑथर माइकल ओसलिवन, आई थिंक उसका नाम है, ही गोज इनटू दिस, लाइक इसका ओरिजिन क्या है. इसका ओरिजिन ये है कि कॉलोनियल ब्रिटिश एरा, ऑब्वियसली उस जमाने में यूरोप वाज डीपली एंटी सेमेटिक. So when they came to this part of the world, they saw Gujarati Muslims as sort of the merchant class, which operated in a similar way to the Jews of Europe, which was that they were okay partially with interest-based finance. They were okay as a merchant class, and they were within that community, and they were kind of lived segregated from the other Muslims of India, so to speak. और उसका एक और एग्जाम्पल ये था कि उसने उस किताब में लिखा कि जब अलीगढ़ यूनिवर्सिटी बन रही थी तो सर सैयद इनको इन गुजराती मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी से पैसे चंदा इकट्ठा करते थे, बट दे वुड नॉट सी द नॉर्दर्न इंडियन मुस्लिम वुड नॉट सी देम एज फुल मुस्लिम्स, ऑल्सो बिकॉज ऑफ दीज इनहेरिटेंस, कार्व आउट्स एटसेट्रा, राइट. तो एक वो इंटरेस्टिंग एनेक्डोट है. बट ये जो कंजूस और इसका जो आया वो ब्रिटिश एरा से आया बिकॉज उन्होंने स्टीरियोटाइप एक्सटेंड किया ऑफ हाउ दे व्यूड एंड परसीव द जूज ऑफ यूरोप एंड द जूज ऑफ ब्रिटेन टू द गुजराती मुस्लिम्स ऑफ इंडिया. और वहाँ से ये कैरिकेचर बनने लगा कि ये कंजूस हैं और ये देर मच लाइक द जूज एंड देर लाइक अ सिमिलर ट्राइब, सो टू स्पीक, of that type, and then it became its own thing, and over time the community started owning it as well, which is what happens, right, in these things, like people like embrace it and sort of they try to take ownership of whatever was negative a few decades ago and say, "Haan, aise hain, but this is part of us and we own this," right? So that's how it began. Now the actual reason why this is there is that, as I said earlier, wealth accumulation is celebrated. But over display of wealth in a way that you are not helping your community is not celebrated.
Okay.
So you will find a lot of people, like I grew up with this example of people frequently telling me कि वो जो बंदा जा रहा है ना खटारी वेस्पा के ऊपर, तुम्हें पता नहीं है इसकी जेब में कितने करोड़ हैं. He can buy out your whole place if you want.
That's absolutely true.
Right? But because that's there, because accumulate wealth, yes. Celebrate ownership of capital, yes. Deploy it in smart ways, yes. But do not over exaggerate or do not be pompous with that display of wealth. Be very considerate of the fact that there are people around you that are poor, help them out, etc. And your accumulation of wealth should not be on display all the time, which is also why in the community to this day, अभी recent years में, for example, Bakra Eid आएगी तो you will see कि शोशा बड़ी होती है, मेमनों के जानवर बड़े-बड़े आते हैं. In a large part of the community, this is not okay. People don't like that part because they think that you are doing what our elders always told us not to do, which is, showcase your wealth in this preposterous way. तो ये बड़ा debate होता है community में.
No, that's very interesting because all this time I thought it was number one security concerns because Memons are primarily in Karachi and Karachi was not safe, especially if you're displaying some wealth. दूसरा, I always thought it was just a very clear understanding of the opportunity cost कि मैं या तो 10 करोड़ की गाड़ी खरीद लूँ बड़ी महंगी सी, या मैं 10 करोड़ धंधे में लगा लूँ और पैसे बना लूँ. गाड़ी डिप्रिशिएट होगी वो धंधे में पैसे बढ़ते जाएंगे. I always viewed it that way, but this is also interesting. Like basically you also get backlash from within the community if someone is just like overtly displaying wealth.
Yeah, and so it's obviously not, it's a bunch of these things combined, right? But at its core is this idea that you have wealth and you've been privileged, and I remember this even from my mother growing up, right? The thing that we would always be taught, and it's across Memon households, is अपने से नीचे वालों को हमेशा देखो तो खुश ज़्यादा रहोगे.
And that's why there's this huge thing towards charity as well. Like some of the biggest charities are run by Memons, and they donate a lot. Like it's a significant amount of money.
Yeah. So when Abdul Sattar Edi Saab started his movement and his charity, right? Like my grandfather and he migrated together. They were both Batwa Memon से आए थे, right? तो आज भी बाटवा में इंडिया में उन्हें लोग याद रखते हैं because he's the son of that soil. तो अब्दुल सत्तार एदी ने खारादर में एक just hand cart से जो है अपना काम शुरू किया था. Right? And in that community, like you would imagine कि एक community, merchant class की community, business करने वाली community, वो अब्दुल सत्तार एदी को शायद कहे कि क्या कर रहे हो, पागल हो गए हो. No. It was like you are doing a very important thing and we will support you. So अब्दुल सत्तार एदी की initial जो charity ventures थे वो खारादर से मेमन सेठों ने ही उनको पैसे दिए और उन्हें celebrate किया because it was like yes, we've accumulated wealth but somebody's got to do this too. किसी ने किसी रोड पे मरे हुए का गुस्ल भी कराना है, उसे दफनाना भी है. If you're doing it, we will support you, and that's how his journey began.
This episode is brought to you by Kiss Bazaar. Kiss Bazaar is a leading BNPL platform of Pakistan. वहाँ पे जाके आप अपने लिए installments पे काफ़ी सारे products ले सकते हैं, चाहे आप freelancer हो, एक early professional हो या entrepreneur हो. आप अपनी startup के लिए अपने लिए ACs, TV, fridge, phones, laptop, electric bikes, whatever it is, आप अपने लिए easy installments पे ले सकते हैं. So please go check out www.kissbazaar.pk. Talk to me about like how does status work within this community? Like what is it that people value more? Like is it just charitable or charitable work actually contributes to your status as well?
So it does. You're standing in the Jamaat and what do you do overall and what you're known for matters a lot. Increasingly it's also become important. Two things have changed and part of this I still have a beef with my extended family ke the Jamaats are not empowering women enough in leadership positions. That is a problem. But what has changed also is the status is now linked to आपने अपनी बच्चियों को कितना पढ़ाया है.
Oh wow.
So that's become a big shift. Like, you know, कि पहले
how
होता
recent
था,
is this shift?
it's a 20-30-year-old shift.
Okay.
It's very recent. क्योंकि उससे पहले होता था मेमन लड़कियों की बड़ी जल्दी शादी हो जाती थी.
Yeah.
But increasingly, you started seeing this trend of, okay, is your daughter a doctor, or has she gone on and done something in her life, right? Like, how quickly did you marry her? That's a moment of pride for a lot of families now, saying कि you know, लड़का ठीक है 16 साल में दुकान पे आके बैठ गया, उसने
कोई
कुछ
मसला
पढ़ा
नहीं।
नहीं, कुछ नहीं किया, लड़की को हमने पढ़ाया है. So that's a big part.
What contributed to that change?
It was just an overall idea that, you know, one of which was ke, again, as Pakistan modernized, right, this idea that just even for young boys, just business alone at the age of 16 or 18 was not enough.
Yeah.
And so you started having this push towards becoming doctors and engineers and lawyers and things like that, jo ki chal raha hai, it's picking up. And then linked to that, it ended up being that it was a faster way for young girls to enter that space versus boys, because boys वो दुकान जाते थे, उनको पैसों का मजा लग जाता था, and there was
Yeah.
the thing, but young girls couldn't go to the दुकान.
Yeah.
तो वो उस era में जाने लगी area में, और then it's continued to grow. So that's a big part of it. It still matters a lot कि आप किस जमात से हैं, because Maimans have a caste system. It's one of the things that is not a great part of that community, but लोग shortcuts इस्तेमाल करते हैं कि आप किस जमात से हैं और फिर किस जमात में से किस सब caste से आए हैं. It is used frequently as a
Profiling
as a profiling tool. और फिर अब एक और जो dark part है, especially with रिश्तास, is के कितना पढ़ा हुआ है लड़का
सही है.
या लड़की, और अगर citizen है किसी दूसरे मुल्क की, तो वैल्यू बहुत ज्यादा लगती है. सो मेमन में पर्टिकुलरली बाटवा मेमन में ये जो जहेज का कॉन्सेप्ट है, ये अभी तक है,
And it's significant.
it's significant, increasingly looked as negatively in terms of that part of it, but it is still a big part of the culture, despite all efforts made to change it across multiple jamaats, but it's embedded in the
In
culture.
the psyche, yeah, and it probably takes few decades to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Okay. I was doing some research on Future Ready as well, and you spoke about islands of success, right? How can Pakistan replicate this? Like the way the community support we spoke about how you don't need accelerators, venture capital, etc. for the Maimans don't need it. How can this island of success be replicated to, like, say, promote entrepreneurship in other parts?
So I think one part of this, right, I would say there are a couple of components that can be replicated, and that those can be done at, like, within an incubator at a university. It can be done at an institution that funds entrepreneurs and et cetera, and has a sort of a trust-based network associated around it. So that first part is key, trust-based networks, because आपका legal system इतना खराब है इस वक्त, that solving for it will take a long time, so you have to short-circuit it, and the trust-based network of these communities are a great example of how you do that. The second part of this is that culturally in those environments, whether it's at the universities or colleges, you have to inculcate at a very young age, in the teens, much like 14-15 साल के जो मेरे cousins इस धंधे में जाते थे, to celebrate accumulation of wealth. Even when that accumulation of wealth leads a 16-year-old to buy a Honda Civic that is fully souped up, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. It's okay. They'll learn from that experience. But if you don't celebrate entrepreneurship at that young age, it's always going to be a problem. For example, I live in the States now, right? One of the things I started relating to when I moved there was that 12-12 साल के बच्चे बच्चियां जो हैं वो हर समर में अपनी कम्युनिटी में लेमनेड स्टैंड लगाते हैं.
Yeah.
And that's their first sort of experience with cost-based accounting, profit कैसे होता है, sales कैसे करते हैं, right? We don't do that, a lot of that in Pakistan with young kids, and sort of tell them, hey, कोने में खड़े हो. It's considered actually beneath them, right?
100%.
अगर आप अच्छे घराने से हैं, quote unquote, तो आप वो काम नहीं करेंगे जो रेडी वाला चिप्स बेच के करता है. हालांकि वो करना चाहिए. That's your first experience, right?
Even university students, I wish they would do internships instead of going to a bank where you do nothing. Go work at a retail store as a salesperson.
Exactly.
Sale बेचना तो सीख लो कम से कम कोई वो. These are hard skills that you will use regardless.
बेचना सीख लो, और again, like, learn by doing.
Yeah.
So that's core of the thing. Like it's not like, even if, as I said, कि अगर मैं जो हूँ वो undergrad करके वापस आता और मैं अपने डैड को कहता कि मुझे बिजनेस करना है, तो वो कैपिटल नहीं लगाते मुझ पे until मैंने 1-2 साल जो है वो दुकान पे बैठ के पर्ची लेके जाके सिर्फ कैश कलेक्ट किया हूँ. Because you would say कि पहले ये तो सीखो कि कैश कलेक्ट कैसे किया जाता है पाकिस्तान में.
Incredibly important.
वो रिलेशनशिप कैसे बनाते हो, किसी की क्या टोपी है, क्या सही बात कर रहा है, वो कैसे करते हो, हाउ डू यू टॉक टू अ मजदूर जिसने आपकी ट्रक अनलोड करनी है, वो अनलोडिंग करते हुए उसकी बेल्स कौन गिनेगा, राइट? ऑल ऑफ दोस थिंग्स ही वुड से कि ये अगर तुम्हें नहीं करना आता है तो तुम तो घाटे का सौदा करके आ जाओगे, राइट? सो दैट्स another part of the thing that has to be done to make islands of success. And I would then say at the third part is sort of more macro, not at the micro level, is that the policymakers have to find a way to make carve-outs for entrepreneurship on the policy and legal side, where you sort of say, okay, you may have a dispute, like, you know, UAE में ये बड़े हैं कि आप अगर आडिया में काम करते हैं तो आडिया के कोर्ट्स बिल्कुल अलग हैं, राइट? तो वो अलग सिस्टम है, आपने वहाँ रजिस्टर, इंडिया में गिफ्ट सिटी है, गिफ्ट सिटी में अगर आप रजिस्टर्ड फाइनेंशियल बिजनेस हैं तो उसका सिस्टम ही पूरा का पूरा गिफ्ट सिटी का अलग है कंपेयर टू अदर पार्ट्स ऑफ इंडिया, बिकॉज दे रिकग्नाइज देयर आर लिमिटेशंस. एंड सो इफ यू बिल्ड इट देयर, उससे कैपेसिटी बनेगी, एक्सपर्टीज बनेगी, ट्रस्ट रीइंफोर्स होगा, and then you can scale from there. So I think that's what you have to do at the macro level to encourage that.
But what other policy suggestions would you have for this?
So I think the one big one, if you were to say like on entrepreneurship and ways to boost entrepreneurship, I would say you have to move aggressively towards reducing cash in your economy. You have to get people to understand that formal banking, whether Sharia compliant or whatever people want to do, is important. And you shift your payments systems into that formal system, because again, money works in that way कि alchemy enable हो जाती है. That's very core to Pakistan because आपने capital accumulate करना है. And then I would say the second thing that the government or the policymakers should start looking at doing is to sort of say, okay, we have a goal of like every year birthing 100, 200, and then maybe 500 in the next, let's say by 2030, new entrepreneurial ventures, not tech ventures, entrepreneurial ventures across Pakistan. How do we do that? What are the places that can do that? Maybe there is a furniture vertical of that, right? Of like furniture expert. Maybe there's a toy manufacturing vertical out there. Maybe there's a restaurant and franchising vertical out of that. So you have to look at sort of your real economy along with tech and sort of say, okay, we're going to incubate and celebrate entrepreneurs over there, and we're going to do whatever it takes to provide them capital so that they modernize and formalize. Because if you start doing that, then all of a sudden, a lot of things become possible. Because आपने एक community के अंदर 4-5-6 examples ही दिखाने हैं कि yes, you can come from nothing and end up with a sophisticated entrepreneurial venture. And sophisticated doesn't mean कि वो AI में काम कर रहा है.
हाँ, exactly.
And you do that, then it takes off on its own.
Hey, so talk to me more about, like, I think one of my biggest problems with Pakistan is कि हमारे heroes नहीं हैं. हमारे heroes politicians ही हैं. Like, you know, eventually, like, you know, even sportsmen भी कोई खास hero नहीं है आपके पास. आप आखिर में अभी भी जिसके लिए आप मरोगे, जिसके लिए आप वो करोगे, it's a politician. Either he's in jail or he's in power. It's or in exile. Like, तीन ही option हो सकते हैं और तो कुछ नहीं हो सकता. How have other societies, or at least whatever your experience is, how have they built? Like, I think America, China, जब मैं इनको देखता हूँ, their big celebrities are big entrepreneurs as well. Like I mean, sure, there's showbiz and there's always going to be entertainers, but उसके अलावा, like, from China to America, you would have these big entrepreneurs that the whole society looks up to. तो पाकिस्तान में ऐसा क्यों नहीं है?
I think it's again that deep discomfort with accumulation of wealth, right?
Okay.
And so you don't appreciate. और दूसरा चीज ये, because that's the case, तो जब कोई उस level पे आ भी जाता है, so then you're like sort of questioning how they got there.
Yeah, क्योंकि मतलब
Then there is scarcity of capital, right? So when somebody has that capital, आप उसकी टांग खींचने लग जाते हैं. Even the government कहती है कि अब जो है, अच्छा जी, हमें लग रहा था कि इस venture से आप इतने पैसे बनाएंगे, आपने उसके 10x बना दिए, तो अब हम contract ही change कर देंगे, right? यही हुआ ना. Rico Dick is a case in point at that very high level.
कि आप तो बहुत ज़्यादा बना रहे हैं.
बहुत ज़्यादा, मतलब हमें तो नहीं पता था कि इसमें से इतनी कॉपर निकल आएगी, तो अब हमने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ही नल एंड वॉइड कर दिया आपका, तो आपके 15 साल तो उस आर्बिट्रेशन में गुजर गए, राइट? बिकॉज आपको लालच आ गई एज द सरकार. तो आई थिंक दैट्स अ बिग पार्ट ऑफ दिस. आई थिंक द सेकेंड वन इज दैट from a marketing and public relations engagement point of view, आपका जो because of the way the country's political economy is structured, you have only allowed and enabled and set the example of the fact that wealth accumulation can happen through crony capitalism and rent seeking. So when you have that as the counterpoint,
Yeah.
it only reinforces the worst instincts of society, right? आपने अपनी टैक्स पॉलिसी किस तरह बनाया? आपने टैक्स पॉलिसी बनाई कि फॉर्मल बिजनेस में आओगे तो क्यूमुलेटिव टैक्सेस ओवर 50% लगने लग जाएंगे एज यू स्केल।
Exactly.
और आप इनफॉर्मल में रियल एस्टेट पे काम करोगे, कब्जे की जमीन बेचोगे तो कुछ नहीं होना आपका। यू विल बिकम अ टाइकून इन पाकिस्तानी लैंग्वेज, राइट? और आप अनटचेबल बन जाओगे।
Exactly.
So when you set that example, you will get, the same outcome that Pakistan has gotten. The incentives were skewed to the other side. So you have to skew the incentives back to the formal side of saying, do business, do it formally, scale, and the government will actually not be the type of government that is always trying to extract more and more out of you. It will sort of try to balance the scales a bit in that situation from salaried people who are part of entrepreneurial ventures, formal businesses, right? As well as businesses themselves, and sort of say, there are a lot of other entrepreneurs in this country, including jewelers and market owners, etc. And we will slowly try to bring them into the formal economy. They will resist right now because आपकी जो approach रही है पिछले 75 साल से वो ये रही है कि आपने over extend किया है अपने आप को और over extract किया है, तो वो उनको उस extraction से कुछ मिलता तो है नहीं. So you'll have to figure out this balance of like saying, okay, I can go to a market around here. पीछे खड्डा market है. And I can have a FBR unit that says, I'm going to work with you to start formalizing everything. Double books nahi hongi khadda mein. Assume kar le, that's the goal. But to pull that off from a psychological perspective, you will first have to go and engage with these business owners and say, आपकी इस मार्केट में मसले क्या हैं? जी पानी नहीं आता, गटर का पानी खड़ा हो जाता है, जी बारिश आती है तो सैलाब है। तो आप कहें कि जी इतने पैसे कलेक्ट होंगे, ये ट्रांसपेरेंटली डिस्क्लोज किए जाएंगे इस बाजार से और इतना परसेंटेज इस रेवेन्यू का पहले इन चीज़ों को सॉल्व करने में लगाया जाएगा। आई एम सेइंग दैट एज एन एग्जांपल। व्हेन यू डू दैट, दैट्स द इंटरवेंशन यू नीड। बिकॉज इफ यू डोंट डू दैट, वो क्यों पैसे दे आपको यार? उसको लग ही नहीं रहा कि उसका पैसा यहाँ जब लगेगा नहीं तो वो क्यों आपको पैसे
नहीं, तो जो दे रहे हैं वो क्यों दे रहे हैं?
वो फंसे हुए हैं ना। So this is the thing. So I was in Islamabad, I was talking to a policy maker and I used exactly that example. I was like, sir, look, currently the way your economy is set up is that there can be 10 Uzairs running 10 different ventures with informal 10 people as businesses. Yeah. And we will make okay money, right? And based on that, if we make okay money and we want to scale, we're not going to scale. हम छोटे ही रहेंगे क्योंकि जैसे ही स्केल किया तो 6 अलग अलग ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस टैक्स लेने आ जाएंगी, कोई इन्वेस्टिगेट करेगा, कोई कुछ करेगा। तो आपने स्केल ही जो है वो फ्लिप किया हुआ है। स्केलिंग को आप अलाउ ही नहीं करते, इंसेंटिवाइज ही नहीं करते, तो वो क्यों होगा? And he was like, ये बात तो ठीक है। I'm like, तो आप करें ना उसके बारे में। Like, why would I go from double books and no compliance to so much?
My question is, why do you think everyone starts off with the intention कि मैंने तो comply ही नहीं करना? I don't think that's the case.
No.
I think most people are generally honest.
People are generally honest, and again, generally all over the world, people don't like paying taxes. This is nothing unique to Pakistan.
Exactly, nobody likes paying taxes.
They will pay taxes when they're made to, but also especially they will pay taxes when they think it's being reinvested in their community.
Of course, but still, like there are countries that are not phenomenal in infrastructure, but वहाँ पे you can see कि फिर भी लोग tax तो हमसे ज़्यादा ही देते हैं. I also think it's like just stupidly hard, which is not benefiting anyone. I'll give you a small example. अगर आपने FBR में अपना sole proprietorship या AOP register करनी है कि जी Association of Persons, मैं और आप partnership कर रहे हैं, तो FBR फॉर्म में आपसे मांगेगा अटैच करके दें मुझे एक रेंट एग्रीमेंट अपनी ऑफिस का, राइट? अब मॉडर्न इकोनॉमी में कोई ऑफिस नहीं है। लाइक मैं अपने घर में बैठ रहा हूँ, उज़ैर इज इन DC, आई एम हियर, वी आर जस्ट डूइंग अ बिजनेस ऑनलाइन, वी डोंट हैव एन, नहीं कहेंगे अच्छा फिर आप अपने घर का लीज एग्रीमेंट दे दें और बताएं कि जी आपका इस लीज एग्रीमेंट से क्या ताल्लुक है। अच्छा, अब funnily enough, if you upload a PDF titled lease agreement and it's a blank PDF, no one checks ever. So, चल जाएगा, like वो उस तरह भी हो जाएगा, but वो एक रुकावट है और बिला वजह, no one's benefiting from this at all, but it's there. right? उसके बाद आप try to open a bank account for a small newly incorporated company. That's another pain. And then of course taxes एक तो आपके income tax है जो ridiculous goes up to 50. Then there's withholding tax. So if I'm paying, अब मैंने company बनाई और मैं किसी को पैसे दे रहा हूँ, मुझे उसके लिए अब मैं withholding agent बन गया हूँ कि उसको देते हुए 50,000 रुपए मैंने इसका डिडक्ट करना है 15% और फिर मैंने जमा कराना है FBR और हर महीने कराना है. So
now scale that up at the macro level on terms of like withholding taxes and its impact on cash flows with a 22% interest rate environment.
Yeah,
and now you're messed up completely
वो
as
तो
a
एक
business.
साइड है. दूसरी साइड ये है कि if I'm a small business who has 2.5 लाख रुपए in capital to start something, so I need to hire a tax guy who will be doing this for me every month. Say 5-6 हज़ार रुपए ले लेगा, 10,000 रुपए महीना ले लेगा मुझसे. So that's another. तो मैं तो शुरू से ही नहीं जाऊंगा उस पे. फिर मैं शुरू से इसको एक और साइड पे रखूंगा. I'll be like, और जो मैं जिसको पैसे दे रहा हूँ ज़ाहिर कह रहा है कि मुझे तो 50,000 पूरे चाहिए. तुमने अगर withholding tax काटना है अपनी जेब से दो. So then I need to keep a separate cash account. So you're forcing me into an informal sector at the beginning, and then once I have double books, I am gonna be comfortable with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And the third part जो मैंने experience किया वो ये है कि आपको जो availability of capital है वो भी informal है. वो कह रहे हैं मुझसे cash ले जाओ फिर मुझे cash में देना वापस. So how do I do that if I'm paying tax?
Exactly.
I have to pay you a return as well and everything. वगैरह. तो मैं कर ही नहीं सकता. So yeah, it's a whole bunch of situations where even if I want to pay tax, even if I want to pay 25-30% tax, it's just more onerous in the beginning. I need to have extra money for compliance.
Yeah, no, and this is like my view to a lot of the policy making people is like, open up your own business.
100%.
Try it, and then you'll know what the problems are, and you'll have a deeper. But because again, administrative state runs this whole thing. They operate in a very different world than entrepreneurs do, and therefore the policy never changes to be more entrepreneurial friendly. It goes into management of economy, not innovation and growth of economy, and this is why we are
and
where
let
we
the
are.
people who are actually contributing to the economy just take over, dictate policy. Okay, towards the end, last couple of questions around future ready. What are the big ideas in terms of what can Pakistanis do to be future proof? Like we before this started recording, we spoke about AI and its impact on the Pakistani economy. हमारे पास एक IT इंडस्ट्री भी है जिसको हमने एक insane वो दिए हुए incentives, no tax, बाकी सबसे tax charge करेंगे उनसे नहीं करेंगे वगैरह. So where do you see all of that going with AI now?
So look, I think that whole wave of innovation, energy में, decentralized payments में, computing में, it's the biggest opportunity Pakistan could have had, because if you are as a country have missed the first wave of innovation and industrialization that happened post-industrial revolution, this is a reset button essentially for the whole world. And in that you have to look at not just the cutting edge implementation parts of AI and compute and things, but you have to look at decentralized energy systems. You have to look at agriculture में soil-based sensors, satellite communications, weather pattern detectors, etc. उनसे आप क्या इनोवेट कर सकते हैं. आपने देखना है कि आपकी जो फैसलाबाद के अंदर या बाकी एग्रीकल्चर बेल्ट की यूनिवर्सिटीज़ के अंदर किस तरह की रिसर्च हो रही थी और अब AI की वजह से वो कितनी एक्सेलरेट हो सकती है. It's a huge leap shift that is coming in that space. So what you have to do is sort of look at the system and say, how do I use technology to eliminate the scarcity of energy, which is, my view is solar plus batteries is the way to look at this. And then on top you layer a compute level, because that's how you balance the grids and monitor data in real time. You look at capital systems and you look at the fact that decentralized payments and everyone's pocket being essentially a bank account. How do you build credit histories off of that? And based off of that credit history, provide capital to entrepreneurs and people to do what they want to do in their lives and be innovative. And then third, on the productivity side, how do you adopt robots and systems, whether it's in livestock, हम बात कर रहे थे Australia में AI is being used to count sheep, for example, now, right? तो आप कैसे करेंगे? That last part is the biggest challenge, because अगर पिछले 50 साल का जो ग्लोबलाइजेशन का एग्जाम्पल था वो ये था कि आप अब गरीब मुल्क हैं, आपने अपने लोगों को गांव से फैक्ट्री में डाला, फैक्ट्री में आपने इंडस्ट्रियलाइज करवाया, उस लेबर से एक्सपोर्ट किया और आपने अपने आप को डेवलप किया. साउथ कोरिया, जापान, चाइना, ऑल ऑफ दीज आर केसेस इन पॉइंट. वो दरवाज़ा बंद हो रहा है. क्यों? क्योंकि automated robot enabled factories are the future. So if you approach this problem of saying कि मैं वही strategy अभी लगाऊंगा कि labor को factory में डाल के, you're not ever going to be globally competitive. आपकी productivity stagnate ही रहेगी और gap बढ़ता रहेगा compared to those who adopt it. So your challenge now is productivity level पर what are the businesses I want to scale in my country, and I want to make sure that those are as efficient as humanly possible compared to the rest of the world. Because अगर BYD जो है वो चाइना में डार्क फैक्ट्री में अपनी गाड़ी बना रही है और आपने यहाँ इंसेंटिव दिया कि आप 10,000 बंदा लेके फैक्ट्री को चलाएं और उस पर आपको हम 5,000 पर बंदा जो है वो बेनिफिट देंगे क्योंकि आप जॉब क्रिएट कर रहे हैं, तो वो गाड़ी की फैक्ट्री ने आपको बकवास गाड़ी बना के देनी है और वो आप कहीं दुनिया में बेच नहीं पाओगे. तो it's a loss of money at that point, right? So policymakers have to be very careful about the fact that they need to look at what are they incentivizing, and what they have to incentivize, regardless of whether the jobs impact or the disruptive impact is terrible in the near term or not, is cutting edge implementation of productivity tools. If you don't do that, you will again end up 20 years later in a situation where everyone else has adopted it and you're operating in the good old ways that are unproductive in nature.
No, that's actually quite a good framework. But in terms of, abhi jaise World Bank president was visiting Pakistan, and he spoke about how we need 3 million jobs a year, and over the next 10 years we need to create 30 million jobs, 35 million jobs. Where are they going to come from?
So this is the thing, right? The challenge for policymakers, I would flip that point actually, right? I have a slight disagreement with how that point was framed.
Okay.
The government's job should not be to decide what jobs get created and how they get created. The government's job in this era of disruption has to be, how do I promote innovation in my economy? Because the moment I take that approach, whether it's innovation in the payment system, whether it's innovation in the energy system, whether it's innovation in how government actually works, for example, then the people and their entrepreneurial spirit sort of is unlocked. And when that's unlocked, that's the only way to create jobs. Now, there are a lot of fear mongering, in my opinion, about what AI will do. But look at it from 20 years ago. जब Facebook नहीं था, तो क्या सोशल मीडिया मैनेजर की जॉब एग्जिस्ट करती थी? नहीं करती थी ना. तो अब जब ये नई टेक्नोलॉजी आएगी तो नए रोल्स बनेंगे, और हाँ, नियर टर्म में डिसरप्शन होगी. पाकिस्तान का एडवांटेज एक्चुअली ये है कि इस वक्त वैसे ही जॉब्स नहीं है, तो डिसरप्शन क्या होगी जॉब्स की, राइट? तो आपने अगर इनोवेशन लेंस आप लगाएं तो आप बहुत कुछ ज्यादा कर सकते हैं. एंड आई थिंक दैट्स वेयर दे नीड टू फोकस ऑन.
Like, last question, which sectors in Pakistan would you say show promise and where we can actually have an advantage? Because keeping in mind we have the most expensive electricity in the world, some of the most expensive electricity in the world. Our minimum wage is also not very low, let's be honest. Like, labor जो हमारी cheap हम कहते हैं, but अगर मैं actual उसको compliance point of view से देखूं, minimum wage हमारी इतनी low नहीं है. तो कहाँ पे opportunity है जो हम globally competitive products बना सकते हैं?
So look, one thing I would say, energy, I agree with you, right? The grid-based energy is some of the more expensive in the region, although slightly उसमें industry side पे कम आ रहा है tariff. But if you actually now start looking at what even businesses and households have deployed on solar, it is globally competitive. And Pakistan is increasingly, if you take that as the sort of moving forward baseline, Pakistan will become globally competitive if you allow it to scale. अब पॉलिसी मेकर का मसला ये हो गया, वो अगेन स्कैरसिटी माइंडसेट से सोच रहे हैं, तो वो कह रहे हैं कि ग्रिड खतरे में पड़ रहा है, तो ग्रिड खतरे में पड़ रहा है तो हमने इनोवेशन को रोकना है by whatever policy measures that they have, right? And my view on this solar thing is a bit more complicated. It's not that terrible a choice, but they have to take a holistic view on that. So again, decentralized energy, solar, the penetration of batteries, electric vehicles as battery storage technologies in their own way is a great innovation. You need to focus on that. The second one is because mobile broadband has reached a level that it has in Pakistan, you can now very easily, through incentives, formalize your economy just by digitizing payments. You digitize flow of payments, a lot of other things become enabled, including credit history. So let's look at that. There's a real opportunity over there. And then the third one, I would say, Green Revolution ke baad, Pakistan has not had a step change in its agriculture. Now technology is making it possible where that step change is possible. You look at places like Sharjah where they're growing wheat out of basically a team of 4 engineers, right, on robotic farms. You need to adopt that. That revolution is what is going to change Pakistan. And that links to that last point, links to your point on wages. Wages पाकिस्तान में comparatively बढ़ती इस वजह से हैं कि जब आपका inflationary shock होता है, particularly food पे labor demand करेगा ज़्यादा wages. आप अगर agriculture को innovate कर दें और वहाँ productivity बढ़ाने लग जाएं, तो आपका automatically wage pressure कम हो जाएगा with a growing population, because food, which is the basic necessity of some of the poorer people in Pakistan who are the labor class, will go away. And when you go away with that, then your labor pressures die down and you become competitive, along with the fact that decentralized energy is making you competitive now.
Okay, fine. So you're basically saying अगर हमने सिर्फ फूड की प्रॉब्लम ही वहाँ पे हमने प्रोडक्टिविटी हमारी बढ़ गई, लाइक कुछ कहाँ तो बढ़ भी रही है, लाइक मे बी दैट्स इनएफिशिएंट मार्केट. जैसे भी हमारे पोटैटोज जो है, सिंस आई थिंक वी कांट एक्सपोर्ट देम टू अफगानिस्तान, apparently the whole market has crashed on that front. But no, so you're saying basically अगर हमारी yield बढ़ जाए,
yield बढ़ानी है आपने, yield per hectare per acre बढ़ानी है, and you can do that. We haven't had a step change in innovation there for a long time, and now there are enough technologies to allow you to do that.
And you also have access to that information easily on your phone now.
Exactly.
But anyway, I think fascinating conversation. I got to learn quite a bit about, especially about the Mavens. But really appreciate you taking the time.
Of course.
And hopefully see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.